everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again for another weekly update on news and information about DCS World. I'm your host, of course, Prickly Hedgehog, and I hope this newsletter finds you well. The weekend is here, which is good, and I can't wait to get some flying time in if I can. We'll see what the schedule allows. I had some fun last night with Juice. We did a few rounds of BFM in the Vipers, where I was thoroughly spanked, but it's been a lot of fun working together and getting some training in and learning some stuff that I was unaware of previously. Certainly difficult to learn when you're flying solo all the time. You not necessarily form bad habits, but there's stuff that takes a while to learn, and when you have somebody else teaching you something, man, things go a lot more quickly, and things make a lot of sense as well. So it's really cool. You kind of have an idea of how things should go, and then when somebody explains exactly why you're doing this, that, and the other, or you kind of recognize how to do that, some dots connect and some things click together, and it just is a nice feeling to actually to learn some stuff and put it into practice, which is good stuff. And there may be some videos on some of that stuff here coming up too, so stand by. All right, well, this week's newsletter from Eagle Dynamics is interesting. We will delve into it in some depth in just a bit here. We don't have, obviously, major changes this week. Remember, of course, last week was our huge patch update with 2.7, and what a patch it was. I would say probably one of the best patches in the game thus far in terms of enjoyment, relatively trouble-free. I know not for everybody, but the clouds and the visual improvements that they've made to the game as a result of those clouds, some better visual cues and some shading, and even things like looking at the cockpit glass, or at least the instrument panels, the glass on the instrument panels and things. They seem to be just a little bit more depth and realism. It really looked good. Sometimes games do that, those kinds of graphical updates, and things start looking a little cartoony. This looked a lot more realistic, and there's just a depth of field somehow, depth of sort of shading and something. Whatever they've done is really cool. I can't quite put my finger on it. I can't quite find the words that I'm looking for, but it just feels a lot more realistic. There's a lot of depth, if you like, in the visual cues that you're getting from the game, and I really like what they've done. So again, hats off to Eagle Dynamics. I know that they're going to be doing fixes and updates. I know things aren't perfect. We still have a lot to work on. But like I said, that update is probably one of the best I've seen in the game in a long, long time in terms of realism and immersion, which is really, really cool. So I could wax on lyrical about that, but of course we need to delve into this week's newsletter, so we'll do that. And it starts actually with an homage to Prince Philip, or the Duke of Edinburgh, if you're not familiar with him. Of course, he is, or was at least, the husband to Queen Elizabeth II, the reigning monarch of the UK, and of course the British Commonwealth, which includes my homeland, New Zealand, and of course Australia and Canada and South Africa and numerous other countries, too many to list, in fairness. But sadly he passed away at the grand old age of 99, so longevity in the family there. And one of the reasons they gave him a shout out here, Eagle Dynamics, was because he actually was a pilot. And I wasn't unaware of this. Apparently he trained as a pilot on the Chipmunk, and then he progressed over to the Harvard and also the Vampire. He got his wings issued to him by the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir William Dixon, at a private ceremony at Buckingham Palace way back in 1953. And then he became a Marshal of the Royal Air Force and also Commodore-in-Chief of the Air Training Corps. Now, he was, in fact, a pretty competent pilot, experienced pilot. He logged about 6,000 hours on 59 types, and he actually had the great privilege of flying the Concorde way back in 1972. And again, a very competent and passionate airman, which I was unaware of. And that probably explains why so many of the males in the royal family are actually service persons, many of them pilots too, I might add. And I guess it helps make the connection a really cool thing. So, like I said, I was unaware that he was actually a pilot, and most of his duties, like the Queen's, are ceremonial, but I just read a biography actually of former New Zealand Prime Minister who's now sadly passed away, Sir David Lange, who got to meet the Queen, and he pointed out that she was intellectually as sharp as a tack and very knowledgeable, and also much warmer in person than her public persona sometimes belies. And I think that's just the nature of this kind of role. But yeah, kind of a cool little thing there. Anyway, this leads us in a weird way to the World War II map, the channel map, which has received a lot of updates and of course some new airfields and structures and things, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Now, I mentioned before about Juice and I from the Air Warfare group getting into some BFM training and having some fun, and one of the things that's happened apparently according to Eagle Dynamics is that there's been a real growth in the online community, so a lot of online plays going on, and as a result of that they've had to lock the lure files relating to weapons systems. So I was unaware that people would mess with these. I suppose that is what happens in any online game these days, where people like to muck around with things to get an edge, or just experimenting perhaps to be less cynical. But anyway, by popular demand, they have locked those files in order to, I guess, level the playing field, because apparently some people were messing with things. So if you know anything about that, let me know. I'm not familiar with that particular component of the game. I get it. I know that people like to experiment with things. Sometimes it's not necessarily for cynical reasons. Sometimes people are knowledgeable in that area and believe that things should be operating in a slightly different way, or are just experimenting themselves. But of course, this also can be a gateway into exploits, which are not appreciated in online play in most online games that I've ever played. So anyway, we'll move on. So as I said before, the channel map, and what they've done is they've added, like I said, some historical airfields, including the following, starting with Eastchurch. Now, RAF Eastchurch remained active between the wars, and it was home apparently to number 2066 or 266 Squadron, let me rephrase that, during the Battle of Britain, of course. And during the Second World War, Eastchurch was part of Coastal Command, a fighter and bomber outfit that protected Allied troops and supply chains from the U-boats and, of course, the Luftwaffe. By 1943, the Coastal Command finally received sufficient long-range B-24 Liberators, equipped with enough wandering Annies needed to prove victorious. Now, the command saw action from the first day of hostilities until the last day of the Second World War. It completed 1 million flying hours and 240,000 operations and destroyed 212 U-boats. Not a good time, the latter part of the war, to be a U-boat sailor. So sadly, a lot of those men passed away in pretty grim circumstances. Certainly some bloody fighting at the end of the Second World War to end it. So a lot of people were killed, a lot of civilian damage, of course. So a sad time, really, but that's history, unfortunately. And we're just lucky that we won't get pulled into any more major conflicts like that ever again. But fingers crossed. Anyway, further, Biggin Hill. Many people have probably heard of this. Another famous airfield during the period. And between the wars, the airfield was used by a number of experimental units working on instrument design, ground-based anti-aircraft defenses, and night flying. The base was actually closed between 29 and 32, whilst renovations and the construction of 2 new hangars took place. Headcorn, another airfield here again, and this on the 6th of August 1943, the 127 Wing Royal Canadian Air Force moved in 403 and 421 squadrons, which were equipped with Spitfires under the command of a rather famous man, Johnny Johnson, the highest scoring wartime Allied ace in European theatre. And on the 17th of April 1944, the airfield was handed over to the 354th Fighter Group, comprising the 353rd, 355th, and 356th fighter squadrons, who operated the North American P-51D Mustangs. There were 3,000 ground crews supporting 70 aircraft. Today, it's a private civil airfield and parachute center, and it also houses the Lashendon Air Cadets of 500 Squadron and Thurston Helicopters, a helicopter flying school company. So it's cool to see it's still in operation today. Quite some history, all of these wonderful airfields over that incredible period. All right, last here of the airfields was High Halden, and RAF High Halden was a Royal Air Force base in Kent, beautiful part of the country, of course, and opened in 1944. It was a prototype for temporary advanced landing ground airfields, which were required for rapid growth of air operations to support the growing activities as Allied forces progressed east towards Berlin. And of course, there was a race between the the Allies and, of course, the Russian forces to, well, capture Berlin, so to speak. But yeah, and again, a brutal time. Now, they've been working on the airfield and the mixture of agricultural and field textures, as well as finer details around the bunkers and recognizable remains, which is pretty cool. And of course, remember, this map also received some improvements in terms of its functionality and frames per second ability. So let me know I haven't flown this in quite some time, so let me know what your experiences are with the map. Many people have pointed out they've had a wonderful experience with these new clouds, with World War II aircraft, and just getting that greater sense of immersion, of course, as we all have, regardless of which aircraft you're flying. So again, I'm curious how that has been panning out and how that's been working with this particular map. In the past, I think these maps have been a little bit thirsty with regards to CPU management and also GPU. So yeah, again, let me know what you think and what your experience has been. Lastly here, we're going to wrap this up with some new ground units, these new 3D units. They've added in some civilian buses. Now, the WWII 677 is a Soviet and Russian city high-floor bus. Gosh, I'm having trouble today. A little tired, excuse me. The first prototype released in 1963, and it was mass-produced from 1967 to 1994. And the assembly of them lasted until 2002. Hard to believe. These were some of the most popular city shuttle buses in the USSR. And I don't know if that's true in terms of whether they were popular or whether they were the only ones available in a communist economy, but let me know if you're from that part of the world. Maybe you can enlighten us as to how good they were or not. Buses are interesting things. Public transport is an important part of any city structure, and crappy buses are not fun to ride on, I must say. Alright, moving on. We also have some weapon systems here as well. So one of those is the SA-6 Gainful, according to the NATO designation, or the 2K12 Cub. Now, the 2K12 Cub M1 surface-to-air missile system was initially developed by the Soviet Army Air Defense to supplement the larger and longer-ranging SA-4 Ganef. The M1 variant was initially deployed in 1973. The SA-6 is a highly mobile system and is able to quickly switch firing positions. So another nasty thing for us to be aware of. In addition to that, we have the SA-6 STR. This is a search and track radar system, which comprises a tracked chassis with a centrally mounted turret featuring two independently rotating sections, the lower of which mounting the acquisition radar and the upper tracking and CW illuminator radar. The system allowed to search for targets with the acquisition radar and then perform tracking and illumination with the second radar. This provided much greater flexibility compared to the SA-4 variant. Now, the combat debut of the FA-6 2K12 was during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. The superior low-altitude performance of the weapon and the CW semi-active missile seeker resulted in a much higher success rate compared to the earlier S-75 and SA-2 guideline and S-125 or SA-3 Goa systems. The SA-6 has been used in a variety of conflicts, including the 1982 Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon, Desert Storm, and the subsequent Northern Southern Watch operations, and the 1999 Allied Force campaign. Here we go, another vehicle, the BTR-80. This is a wheeled amphibious combat vehicle designed to carry infantry and marines to the battlefield. It provides supporting fire from inside the vehicle. The BTR-80 mounts a turreted 14.5mm KPVT machine gun and a coaxial 7.62mm PKT machine gun there. Ooh. Sorry, struggling here a little bit. Now, all of the features that we have highlighted in this week's letter are now available for you to use in DCS World 2.7 Open Beta. Stress that again. New things are always in open beta because this comes up all the time where people can't find what I'm talking about. And then I have to remind you, it's only available in one version of the game at the moment until it becomes available in the standalone version, or the stable version at least, of the game. So, apologies for any confusion there. Hopefully, we're going to see some of these new improvements in the stable version of the game soon, and that will please a lot of you, of course, who are not running the open beta variants. So, stand by. Don't forget, the Steam version of the sale is on, and don't forget to pick up your goodies while you can if things are on sale, if you are able to, because there's some good stuff to pick up. I've got to actually look. I don't know if I've missed out, but there's some goodies to pick up here. So that brings us to the end of the newsletter. I hope you enjoyed the newsletter this week and have had some flying time in. Let me know what your experiences are with the game now that we've had 2.7 out for about a week. It's been a splendid introduction to some really wonderful visual experiences in the game. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, I just want to congratulate Eagle Dynamics for the work that they have put in on that. I know it's been a long time coming. I know that they have given us these wonderful teasers. We knew it was coming. We hoped it was going to be released last week, and it was, so there's no hiccups there. And I don't believe, aside from issues here and there, I don't believe we've had as much drama with this introduction of 2.7 to the previous version of 2.5.6 way back around this time last year, which didn't go quite as well. So again, let me know your thoughts, what your experiences are, how you feel about the game right now, because I definitely think it's a different game. Like I said, we've got these new things with the channel, and we've got some love there for the World War II, and of course we've got some new objects this week, which either are things to avoid, or, for those of you who are a little more game, some new things to blow up, which is always good. Now, we'll wrap this up. I just want to thank everybody again for all the support on the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps keep the channel chugging along. It's really important, and I really appreciate the feedback and the support from all of you. And again, I hope this weekend finds you well. Stay safe out there, everybody. This is Prickly Hedgehog out for another week, and stay tuned for more content which is coming. We'll see you around. Stay flying, everybody. Cheers.